Through this essay, I will be exploring and analyzing everyday use by Alice Walker. I will be looking at the story through a new historicism lens and through my own understanding of the story. Keep in mind that everyone has their own viewpoints. Throughout the semester, the theme of new historicism was emphasized. I struggled understanding what this term meant. Upon research, I noticed that it's one thing I always like looking at. I really like looking at art history. While learning art history, the observer must also be aware of what had happened around the time the artwork was made, especially comprehending art movements such as Cubism, Surrealism, Prehistory, Baroque, Impressionism, Romanticism, and so many more. All of these periods had a different environment to their own society. One thing that all these art movements had in common was that they were all made by humans. People also make stories. They help us feel emotion. I will discuss the story through chronological order. The story first introduces us to Maggie and eventually Mama. We see them cleaning the front yard. I find it important to always have a clean house, a house where Maggie and Mama have lived for over 12 years. We then learn that Maggie has burn scars throughout her arms and legs. She feels jealousy and amazement at the same time for her sister. Jealousy because she feels inferior to her sister. Her sister has never received rejection. The first transition of the story comes when Mama mentions seeing children meet their parents surprising on a TV show. Both parents and children seem happy to see one another. She then mentions how she desires this feeling with her daughter Dee exiting the limousine, the luxurious life, having a fantasy of seeing Johnny Carson shaking her hand and having shared a moment with her own daughter Dee. The story then steers away from one of Mama's dreams. We find out that Mama is a big, strong woman. She can kill a hog and eat it seconds after it was removed from the fire. She has even killed a bull calf by swinging a sledgehammer through its head. She is described as someone ferocious. Her daughter, no matter, sees her skinnier, with good skin color and shiny hair. Or that's what she wants to be seen as. Having the ideal body is always an unachievable goal. It is a standard that would attract the attention of people. It's ideal because it would never be achieved. Mama is scared to look at the eyes of a white man, while Dee has more courage. This story was written in the early 1970s. Slavery was illegal at the time, yet there was still color discrimination. The author mentions how Dee attends civil rights movements. Dee is brave and an outgoing character, yet her sister is shy and will end up living antisocial like her mother. Their mother didn't attend school. School was closed down for her. Dee doesn't feel like she even belongs to this family. She ends up changing her name to Wanjaro. She arrives home in an African dress, bright yellow, along with a man. We never do know if she ends up getting married to him. The first thing she does is take pictures of her family in front of the house. Maggie, of course, being timid behind her mother. Dee refuses her name because it was given to her by white slave owners at some point prior. Mama tells Dee who she was named after. She was named after her aunt Deesy, but before it was her grandmother Dee, and at some point she was slaved by white slave owners. The man with her is named Hakima Barber. The first thing he says is Assalamu alaikum. This is a greeting in the Middle East. It translates to peace be with you. Later, all four go inside for dinner. However, the man rejects pork offered by Mama because it is unclean. That had to be the first time someone has turned down her own food. I find it very significant. Mama, living in the countryside, she doesn't know much about the outside world, and so when Mr. Barber comes in contact with her, she completely becomes confused. I admire this contact they made between each other. It shows how two cultures have very different viewpoints, from greeting to what you can eat. When Jaro didn't bring up the reason why she came back was for the butter churn. Isn't this a selfish act? Coming back home just for materials and not so much for family? She then goes get the quilts, but Mama urges her to get the newer ones. When Jaro doesn't want the newer ones, she wants the older quilts. Mama then mentions that she's giving up the old quilts to Maggie when she gets married. She says, "The truth is, I promised to give her the quilts to Maggie after she marries John, a wedding gift. However, when Jared brings up that Maggie won't put the quilts to everyday use, Mama, out of frustration that Dee always gets it her way, takes the quilts out of Wanjaro's hand and gives it to Maggie. Wanjaro exits the house with the butter churn and her partner. She exclaims to Mama that you just don't understand your heritage. I find this ironic because Wanjaro refuses to be called Dee. her name being part of her heritage. Before the story ends, Maggie smiled, a real smile, not scared. Both Mama and Maggie will be living life as their ancestors, while Dee is off living her own life. She says to her family, "You ought to try to make something out of yourself too, Maggie. It's really a new day for us." Throughout Maggie's marriage, she will keep the family tradition alive that were once passed down from her grandmother and her aunt. Maggie will continue living her traditions and putting them to everyday use. Thanks for watching. Disclaimer: this video was made for educational and research purposes only. All citation will be found in the description below.